This is an oral history interview conducted for the Witness to War Serving a Nation project at Nauset Regional High School on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. For the sake of the interview, please state your full name and community in which you now reside.
Jonathan Wagner and Dennis Bort.
Okay. We'll start off simple. Where did you grow up?
I was raised in North Carolina.
How did you end up on Cape Cod?
My father moved here, and then we moved to Cape.
Could you summarize some of your childhood for us?
Let's see. I lived in pretty much North Carolina all my life, and then we moved to Cape. I think 1998. I think.
Did you grow up in a military family?
No, not.
How did you end up serving then?
It's just something I've always wanted to do.
How did your family react when you said that you enlisted?
They're happy.
What branch of service did you join and why?
I joined the Marine Corps, and I was in there for eight years, and then after that, I joined the National Guard for the remaining 10.
What was one of the first things you did after you enlisted?
Like what do you mean?
What was some of the first people that you told that you enlisted?
Oh, okay, sorry. I told friends and family.
Did you serve with any of your friends?
Yes, I did. My stepmother's son, I served with him.
Do you remember some of your first days of service?
Not really. No.
Do you know how you felt during those first days of service?
Nervous.
What was boot camp like?
3 months of pain. It was long, very physical.
Did you go anywhere different for boot camp?
Went to Parris Island, South Carolina.
Was there anything that surprised you when you first got there?
Hot, sand fleas, and the amount of it's just a lot of physical activity.
What was your job in the military, Rand?
Truck driver.
Could you tell us about some of the patches on your uniform?
Yes. This is the unit. This is the unit patch that I belong to. Now it's the 1166 Transportation Company. Then we all have flags, and then you have your name and so you have the U.S. Army and then your last name, and then this is your rank. So I'm a sergeant.
What were the missions that you were put on?
Overseas or like at home?
Just in general.
So at home in the National Guard, we get called up to do snow removal, transport people if like floods and stuff like that. Overseas, we have to haul supplies from one base to another base to resupply the troops.
What was one of the most challenging tasks that you completed?
Going overseas during the war of Fallujah. That was back in 2002, 2003. So we had to transport thousands of materials from the port in Kuwait all the way to Syria. And we slept in our trucks. It was 24/7 operation.
Would it be rude to ask you if there are any challenges that you couldn't complete?
No, there wasn't actually. Everything that we got tasked, we was able to complete.
What job did you do that you enjoyed the most?
So just recently, Boston had some floods. We were able to go down to Boston and actually a lot of civilians were stranded in their homes, so we got to drive their army trucks through the big high water and rescue a lot of civilians and take them to shelters.
Did you get along with the people around you?
Yes.
Do you have any fun experiences with the people around you that you'd like to share?
I don't really have any, I don't think.
What was the food like?
Horrible.
Would you like to go into more detail about that?
I should have brought some. But they're called MREs, which stands for Meals Ready to Eat. And it's prepackaged food that's from probably 10, 15 years old.
They're disgusting.
It's very disgusting.
Yeah.
You add a little bit of water to it, eat it, heat it up. It's horrible.
How did the higher ups treat you?
Good. If you do your job like you're supposed to, they treat you with respect. As long as you treat them with respect, they'll do the same to you. So, it's very, very well.
Did you ever see combat?
Yes.
What was it like seeing it?
Very scary, nervous. You wonder if you're ever going to come home. It's very scary.
Were there any times that you were mentally conflicted?
Not really.
What was some of your most memorable experiences?
Like definitely being shot at, being injured overseas. Just a lot of the people you see overseas and how they act towards you and how they act in general.
Would you like to go into more detail about that?
About which item?
The people there.
Yeah, so the Iraqis, the men and women, they don't necessarily do the fighting, it's their kids. So the Iraqis would say to their kids, hey, go shoot these Americans, go blow up these Americans, and it would be the kids doing all the work for their parents, which is kind of disturbing.
You were talking about your wounds. Do you want to go into more detail about that?
Yes, so in 2003, I was overseas in Iraq, and I got wounded by a mortar. I got thrown 25 feet and got my back injured.
Did you have any very dark moments?
I think after I got injured, just basically wondering if I would ever come home again.
How did you pass the time?
By just doing a job and staying busy, trying not to think about being home, going home.
Was there anything that you regret?
No.
How did your experience affect you today?
I think it, let's see. I think it's a good training opportunity. I mean, it provided me with a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. I think it's a different way of life, just perspective on life.
Do you see your experience as a positive or negative one?
Positive.
Did you stay in touch with your family?
Somewhat. 02, 03 was really hard. You had to write letters home. It took months. Probably took about a month and a half to receive anything back. The second time I got deployed, 05, 06, same thing. We had to write letters home. And then 2011 and 2010 to 2011, we actually had cell phones. So that was a lot more easier to communicate with your family.
Would you like to talk more about the cell phones?
Yes, so you could purchase prepaid cell phones from the Kuwaitis, and they would, you purchase a plan and you can allow to call, you can call home, use like phone cards and stuff like that.
How did it feel coming back home?
amazing. It's good. Really, really good.
What was one of your biggest takeaways from being in the military?
Just the friends that you meet with all, and all their families. A lot of the knowledge. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Do you see the world differently now?
I think a little bit. Yes, I do.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that we haven't already covered?
No.
Probably in detail.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Would you like to show us some of the stuff that you brought us?
Yeah. Let's see. So I brought just an army helmet, and then I brought a gas mask. I brought a gas mask.
Have you ever had to use that?
Yes, we had to wear this a lot overseas. The enemy would shoot stuff into the camp, and we wasn't uncertain on what it was, if it was a gas-related event or anything else like that. So they would sound alarms, and you would have to put your gas mask on to make sure that you're not going to die in case it was a chemical weapon. Every year we do training. We have to go into a gas chamber. They fill it with gas. You wear it, and you teach you how to use it, and you can breathe with that on.
What were some of the camps that you had to go into? Like?
What were they like? Basically, it's like a big, wide open desert with a bunch of they're called HESCO barriers. It's kind of like sand-filled boxes around the camp with barbed wire, basically in the middle of a desert. Just porta potties. You're sleeping in tents in a big, wide open desert.
How'd you get water?
Aquafina. So there's an Aquafina plant in Kuwait and Iraq. So they would transport water, bottled water into us. And that's one of our jobs. We would be the guys transporting it from base to base. So it would come in on boats. We would then go down and pick it up, put it on our trucks, and drive it to all different camps all over Iraq, Kuwait.
Was there any major things that happened in Kuwait that you still think about today?
Just the whole invasion of like Iraq. So when back in 02, 03, when we actually raided the city, we provided the troops to the city, and they went house to house and did what they needed to do.
Do you think that what the people do here helps troops that are overseas?
Absolutely. We had care packages all the time, because there's not stores overseas like there are here, so you can't buy any of that stuff over there. So some of the stuff you're used to, like soda, candy, all that stuff, you don't get it unless people send it to you.
Yeah. What were some of the luxuries that you had that you were very happy about getting?
Care packages. We all look forward to our mail every day. That's one of the biggest things we all look forward to.
Did you make any friends there that you still keep in touch with now?
Yes, I have some friends that are in the military still. I talk to every now and then.
Did you keep a journal or anything?
No, I did not.
Would you like to show us some of the pictures that you have from there?
Yes, some. I don't know if you want to show them on there, but yeah, you can. You're welcome to look in the book. There's some graphic pictures in there.
Okay. Are there any squads you had to go out with?
We went out with fire teams, which consist of like 3 to 4 people. So with my truck, it would be your driver, your assistant driver, and your gunner. So we had a 3-man fire team. And your driver did the driving. The assistant driver would be the convoy commander. Well, I'm sorry, the truck commander. So they would give commands to the gunner on if they seen a bad guy, seeing something to shoot at. They would tell them to shoot at it or not to shoot at it.
Okay. Did you have to use any weapons?
Yes, we used M16, which is a personal weapon. That was a weapon we carried on us all the time. On our trucks, we had 240 Golfs, 240 Bravo. We had 50 caliber machine guns, Mark 19, which is a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. There's a lot of weapons that we had to put on top of our trucks and use often.
How were the camps like when you were there?
The camps,
Like, how did they run?
so you had a place where you stay and sleep, and then which was tents. There were big giant tents set up, and you slept on cots. And then they had tents that had bathrooms in them, which was like the porta johns, like the porta potties. And then for like a chow hall, they had a tent set up with a bunch of tables. And every now and then they'd bring in some hot meals. Some of the camps had third world nationals, so there were people from like Iran, all different countries that would come over and help cook. And some people would actually cook hot meals. Some camps would have hot meals cooked, which was a lot better than MREs.
Yeah.
And then you would have your staging lanes where you would go to load up your trucks. So there would be a big open parking lot with a bunch of heavy machinery and a bunch of supplies. So you'd go there, get your supplies loaded on your truck, and then you would go into another parking lot so the next day you could all drive out together and leave.
How did you get along with the native people there that were like helping you and such?
Very well. They were very friendly, very nice people. They're just over there trying to make some extra money, and they're just helping out. They did a lot of the cleaning, a lot of cooking. They fueled up our trucks. So they're very helpful.
Did you have any time to like relax or anything?
Yes. Before and after missions, so a basic day would consist of so they would put out a convoy brief, which would be it'd be like a message. So they would tell you, okay, this is what your job is today. You need to do this, this, and this. And then after those tasks are completed, you have downtime. You're able to go back to your cot and hang out until the next place to be.
How did you guys like pass the time? Like, what kind of games did you play in the cots and such?
We played a lot of football. Just there's not really much to do. We set up a volleyball net and played a little volleyball, played football, wrote letters home. It's not a lot to do overseas.
Was there any physical training?
Yeah, a lot of physical training. A lot of people lifted weights, worked out, stuff like that, went running.
How different is it there than it is here for people-wise and how they act?
People-wise, the only people over there it would be the third world nationals, and I mean they act similar to the civilians here, very similar. Other than that, it's nobody else but everybody in the military, like your friends in the military and the higher ups.
Mm-hmm.
How long would the rides last for the convoys?
Probably 15, 20 hours.
Jesus.
It all depends on where you go. Some camps. So what we would do is when we load up supplies, it'd probably be 100 trucks.
Mm-hmm.
So you take 100 trucks and you line them up, and you go down this big road, and you stop at every camp. Along each way, you drop off supplies, and then pick up new supplies for the next camp. And we do that all the way from the port in Kuwait. Is where all the supplies came in from America. So in America, they would ship over all the supplies that we needed on the boats, and they would go to a port, which is in Kuwait. We would travel to the port of Kuwait, load up all of our trucks, and go from there all the way to Syria, and stop at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bases. And at each base, you would drop off supplies. And then if that base needed to bring supplies to another base, we would then load those supplies up and bring them to the other base. So that went on. So by the time you went from Kuwait to Syria, it was probably about a month, roughly. And you would sleep in your truck, usually. If you're on the road, you'd sleep in your truck, and then load it up in the morning, go out, sleep at the next camp, and it just went on. And then you just, the chain of, then after all that, you'd come all the way back to the port and do it all over again.
Were there any times that the trucks didn't work or there was something wrong with them?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, there are times where you have to leave your truck on the side of the road and get in. So we had more, we had more trucks than we had people. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have somebody driving and somebody assisting. When we were there, the mission was more important to have somebody next to you. So what we would do is they would assign everybody a truck. So everybody would drove alone, and you had your own truck. So you could bring more supplies to people that needed it faster.
Were there any big things that happened with the trucks, like people and conflicts that happened?
Yes. So a friend of mine, when we were driving, a kid ran out with a grenade in his hand and threw it under one of my friend's trucks, and it blew up. He lost his leg. So the truck was damaged. He was hurt. A lot of trucks got shot while driving. A lot of trucks broke down. A lot of trucks got in accidents. Just a lot of crazy stuff.
What were you usually assigned for with the trucks?
We had on the back of our truck anywhere from food. So a lot of trucks had food, water. Some trucks had ammunition, grenades, bombs, stuff like that. Some other trucks had pieces of aircraft, like helicopter parts. Some trucks would carry artillery guns. Some trucks would carry like other trucks, such as like Humvees or other tractor trailers that people needed in different camps. So each camp had a certain request on what they needed, and then we would pick up certain supplies according to what each base needed.
Were there any other vehicles that you drove besides trucks?
Overseas, no. I drove, it was strictly tractor trailers, Humvees, 5 tons, stuff like that.
Could you listen to any music or anything?
Yeah. I brought a little radio with me in my truck. The trucks itself don't have radios, so either headphones or like a little radio.
Did you sing at any points during that, just to pass time?
Oh, of course, yeah.
What were your friends like?
I mean, similar to myself. Overseas we all had kids.
Yeah.
Some of us did. At least some of my friends had. They had kids back home, wives.
Did you lose any of your friends?
I did. I lost one of my friends overseas.
How did you take that mentally?
Very hard. It's very rough. You don't know if it's going to happen to yourself. So it's pretty hard on you.
Did you ever go out on missions to help other people, such as there was another truck that was in trouble and you need to help them out?
Not such like that, but we did a lot of supply missions, and along the way, if you ran into stuff like that, you would help them out. There'd be trucks stranded, so you'd pick up the passengers and leave the truck on the side of the road.
So what did the company drivers do exactly?
Which drivers?
The person that would sit next to the driver.
Okay, they would. It's their job. It's their responsibility to look for enemies. So as you're driving, if the if your A driver, which is your passenger, if he's seen, he or she, if they've seen any enemies, the enemies would have to be, if they're a guy riding a camel, he would announce it. There's a guy riding a camel. There's a guy over here walking. There's a guy over here. Well, this guy over here has a gun, and his job is to identify good guys and bad guys.
How did you stay in contact with other people at like camps if you were in one of the trucks?
Our trucks have radios, kind of like an intercom system.
Mm.
So they would have built-in radios, and you could talk from truck to truck.
What were the sights like? Like, what did you see out there?
There's Fallujah is kind of like Boston. It's very similar. There's big, tall buildings, rundown shacks. A lot of the buildings are made of like clay. They use like the sand and they kind of bake it. And they make like clay bricks.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of buildings are made out of bricks. Kuwait is like Boston. Kuwait is beautiful. I was very surprised when I seen Kuwait and how beautiful it was. It looks like identical to Boston. It has water, really nice high buildings, like rotaries just like we do.
That's cool.
Expensive cars. They all drive like Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and a lot of exotic stuff over there. It's pretty neat. Iraq is kind of open desert. There's not much to see in Iraq. Not much at all.
What was one thing that took you a very long time to get used to?
Being shot at. It's different. You would drive your truck from camp to camp, and along the way, people would shoot at you. The enemy would shoot at you. You'd have to shoot back, return fire. And then when you go to bed, it would be 2 or 3 people always staying up. So you'd rotate. It's called fire watch. So the people that are awake would make sure that nobody would come into the camp and shoot at you, or no bombs. If somebody shot artillery rounds into camp, stuff like that. And we all took turns. At first, it's really hard to sleep during, because there would be like gunfights outside the camp, and you could hear people shooting long distance away. And it's just be very challenging to try to fall asleep to that.
Was there wildlife out there that bothered you?
There's camel spiders.
Oh yeah.
Big, giant, huge spiders. And then, I don't know the technical name of, but there's, it's like a blood-spitting lizard. It shoots blood out of its eyes.
Ooh.
And they're huge lizards. And I don't know what the name of them are, but they're crazy.
That sounds scary.
We've seen a lot of those, a lot of scorpions. So if you slept at night, you kept your boots, and you took your boots off, you have to keep them like on you.
Yeah.
Before you put your foot in your boot, you have to dump your boot out, make sure there's no animals in there.
Was there sand everywhere?
Sand everywhere.
Yeah.
You ate sand, drank sand, wore sand. Sand in your eyes and hair. Showers are horrible. We took showers on the back of our truck with water bottles. Hygiene was a issue.
So, this might sound like a weird question, but did you brush your teeth since you were talking about showering?
Yeah, stuff like that, like brushing your teeth and taking a shower. So brushing your teeth, you could do that every day because you can do it with a water bottle. Now, taking a shower, we would set up so at some points we had 2 people to a truck, and some points there was 1 person to a truck. So on the back of our truck, there were tractor trailers. So we'd set up like a little, we have sheets, so you could set up a sheet around the back of your truck, and you can actually take a water bottle, because there was 140 degrees over there. So some of the water bottles the water's really hot. So you could take the water bottle and dump it over your head, wash up, and then dump some more water on your head. So you could shower quite often.
How did you deal with the heat?
I like it better than the cold. The heat's, it is horrible, but it's a lot better than being cold.
It's tolerable.
Yes. Yeah, it was 140 during the day, and at night it dropped down to 80, which made it feel like wintertime. It was felt really cold.
How's the transition from that back here?
Crazy. You have to be hydrated. You have to drink lots and lots and lots of water. A lot of guys, including myself, I stepped off the plane from the U.S. into Iraq within probably, I think 4 hours later. I got dehydrated and felt like I was going to pass out. I didn't drink enough water, so I learned my lesson really quick to stay hydrated, drink a lot of water. And it's not cold water, it's hot, room temperature water.
Yeah, it's not good.
So we came up with ideas to cool that water. We would take a new pair of socks, and you stick your water bottle inside like the long socks, and then you could tie it onto your mirror on your truck, and then you would get another water bottle and get the sock wet. And while driving, the hot air would cool that water bottle, so it'd be a little bit cooler to drink. So that was our way of cooling our water.
How was it transferring from that back into society in America?
It was pretty easy because the stuff we had over there was nothing. It came back and we had all that stuff back. It's really nice to have cold water. That's some of the stuff that people take for granted, is having something cold to drink and eating whatever you want. You can go to the store, go buy whatever you wanted. So if you wanted a candy bar or a nice hot meal, it'd be nice you can go ahead and do it here. That's something that we took for granted.
Yeah.
Because being over there, you don't have any of that stuff.
Were there any, you were talking about some mental tests that you needed to take before you got back into society. What were those like?
So it's mandatory. So when you return from overseas, you have to go to a MOB site. Our MOB site was Camp Pendleton, California, when I was in the Marine Corps. When I was in the Army, it was Fort Hood, Texas. So they evaluate you, make sure you're not crazy, make sure you're not going to go home and harm somebody. Because a lot of people are used to shooting at people or harming enemies and stuff. They want to make sure that you're not crazy, I guess. And you don't come home and take out your anger on your family or somebody that made you mad. So after overseas, after being in country for 8-9 months, you go to this MOB site, you stay there for probably a week or two, and then you can return home.
Mm-hmm. So was that the test, is just staying there, or was there actual like physical analysis?
They do like a physical. They do like a mental physical, and they do an actual physical on your body. Make sure you're healthy. Make sure you don't have any kind of diseases to bring home. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we end this?
No, I think
Is there anything that you'd like to say to people who might want to be in the military or anything like that?
it's definitely worth it. It's worth the experience. It's definitely a life-changing event. It's good to serve your country. It's a great feeling to go out there and just know that you're protecting people. I think it's definitely a good thing to do.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
your time, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.